will be made available if you would like. And remember that this is an online summit with a lot of people taking part, so be prepared for things to be a little bit unexpected. We may see a cat walking in front of the screen, someone may be drinking coffee out of a very strange mug, and there may be some technological hiccups. If there are, we'll treat it all with a good dose of humour. And I'd like you to imagine your favourite series. It might be on Netflix, it might be on Amazon Prime or some other platform. Imagine the chain of exciting episodes, the attractive and fascinating characters, the meaningful plot, the opportunity for you to immerse yourself in the story. And exactly what is awaiting you here at the EconoWin 2020 Couch Summit. People from both sides of the Mediterranean Sea will be sitting on their sofas, their chairs, their stools, maybe also on the floor to watch, listen, think, learn, participate, and leave the series inspired by the voices for the future that we will be hearing. But I would like to give the first words, the first voices to Gen Z, and EconoWin now proudly presents the future film premiere of our Girlinali. So please, ladies and gentlemen, raise the curtain for the voices for the future.
To work in an environment where I can be completely myself. That's how I can generate the best results as possible.
It's my personal wish that we, the Generation Z, who are greatly affected by the impact of the climate change, master the challenge to implement into a future in which we are very profitable, but still allow our world to blossom again.
I really appreciate in a company is a strong corporate culture that ensures an open and friendly working environment.
If I have to define myself, it will be a person that looks at her career as an adventure, ready to innovate, and wants to develop her skills more and more.
I am hoping for a job that would allow me to be creative and will include me within the decision-making process. Basically, for my voice to be heard.
In my career, I'm looking for better, because I think if you love the things that you are doing, you will be able to be more productive and creative.
The work environment that makes me feel the best in is the field work, or the work that makes me feel comfortable and do more assignments. Unlike that, the desk work makes me feel bored and it oppresses my passion.
That impresses me the most in my role model, who is my mother, is that she can always balance between her working life and her life with us. This is the type of career I want to have when I grow up.
I perform the best in an environment where I can express my opinions, my ideas, where everyone is treated fairly and I feel like I matter.
Companies should stop seeing people as members and rather start seeing them as different individuals who have different needs and different assets to offer.
What is really special about Generation Z is that we are very well equipped with technology, fast learners, and ambitious.
What makes challenge, and we won't settle for less. As a girl who's changed her job for 14 different times in the past 5 years, I know that for a fact, we, the Generation Z, don't like settling for less.
The workplace of today is impacted by Gen Z, who entering the workforce with a deep understanding of technologies and its potential to transform how we work and live.
This new generation is autonomous, responsible. Indeed, these young people were born with the culture of do it yourself. This mindset helps them to be efficient and solution-oriented.
They value the freedom of expressions, and they are not about labels like economic background or education levels.
They are known for placing great value on their work-life balance. That's why companies need to adapt their HR practices to cater to that.
Inclusion and adaptation to the interests of the youth in the region are basic. It's at the crux of our mandate, because we believe that the youth hold the keys not only to the future, but also to the present moment.
They are exposed to new technologies, exposed to new knowledge. They also have the courage to access new work fields. I'm waiting for them.
Wow. Thank you so much. That really, really shows, as Michaela has just written in the chat, all these great young women. And I think what we're seeing here is a generation of young women who really know what they want and are right there to really move the digital transformation to the next level. So the question, I guess, that we will be trying to answer over the course of the week is, are companies ready for them? Let me just give you a quick overview, if I can, of the structure of the EconoWin Global Culture Summit from the 9th to the 17th of June. So there's something for you to do almost every day online here with us. We have the virtual town hall meetings, which are here in a large group of people, where most of your participation will be using the various tools that we'll be giving you later. We also have workshops, which are in smaller groups, the 5 spin-offs, where you'll also be able to hopefully really get into some meaningful conversations and learn with and from each other. And then anytime, anywhere during this week, but also afterwards, we have giving you the opportunity to use the app and the website to create and experience. Have a look at the blog, check out the exhibition, and really make sure that you use the social wall on the app to connect. The best thing for you to do, I guess, is to upload your profile on the app as soon as possible and connect with each other there. Just an overview of episode 1, this first opening episode. First of all, we've been wowed by the girl. I'm really looking at today and over the course of the next few days. We will also be hearing today about who started this. The German Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development and GIZ will be welcoming us. Then it's over to you, and we all need to know who we're sitting on our various couches with, and sofas and chairs across this huge region. And it's our great pleasure also later to hear insights on tomorrow's career paths. So if you have any questions on process, or you're having technology issues, which can happen, just write it up in the chat, and the team will be trying to assist you in any way that's possible. But now, with no further ado, let me ask those organizations who are at the heart of the EconoWin Couch Summit to welcome us. We're going to start with the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. The Parliamentary State Secretary, Dr. Maria Flachsbart, is with us on a video call. And if everybody else could mute, please, and if you turn your cameras off. So I can see that Sami and Maisa, you have your cameras, had them on. Now, let's give the word to Maria.
Ladies and gentlemen, online viewers, participants, and the EconoWin Couch Summit 2020. Studies by the International Monetary Fund show that companies with more women in leadership positions are demonstrably more profitable. Economic growth is higher in countries where more women have a job and have more decision-making powers. Banks that have more women on their boards are more stable. And countries with well-educated women in their labor market have greater product diversity. This is not surprising, as women bring different experience, perspectives, and ideas to the workplace. Global annual GDP could grow by at least $12 trillion if women enjoyed equality in economic life, according to estimates published by the consulting from McKinsey. Women bring growth, stability, and innovation. In the MENA region, in particular, there is a lot potential. Women are still a minority in labor market there. Only 23% of all women in the region hold jobs, most of them in the public sector. But women who start their own business show time and again how much courage and creativity they have putting their own ideas into practice under difficult circumstances. We want to support these women's dedication and energy. The Federal Minister for Economic Cooperation and Development is proud to have supported the EcoWin project in the MENA region since 2015 in Egypt, Jordan, Morocco, and Tunisia. We empower girls and young women in these countries through mentoring and internship programs so that they can develop their own ideas on the type of work they want to do and successfully enter the job market because they are well prepared. Companies in the MENA region with increasingly hiring women, an encouraging trend. So far, we have helped 34 companies to become more women-friendly and family-friendly. They have created better working conditions for nearly 20,000 women, provided in-service training, and changed their human resource strategies. These companies include well-known corporations such as Green Valley, Valeo, Kavar Group, Siemens, ThyssenKrupp, Dell, and Vodafone. Thanks to the entrepreneurs and the young, dedicated women, it has been so far possible to integrate more than 40,000 women in the labor market. At the EconoWin Summit, we will celebrate these achievements over the next few days, but we will also think about the future. So I'm very glad that the next few days will be all about you, young women. And I'm impressed that you, company leaders, are willing to listen to these young and very well-trained generation. These women are the future of the MENA region. And if governments and enterprises take them seriously, all parties will benefit. The companies of your countries and the young, skilled women. I wish you a fruitful and inspiring exchange.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Parliamentary State Secretary Maria Flachsbart. And GIZ, who masterminded this whole EconoWin Couch Summit, and also beyond and before the whole process that has just been described, will now also welcome us to the start of the series. Thorsten Schäfer-Gumbel, who is a member of the management board of GIZ, over to you.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear Dr. Flaxbart, I'm very glad to be able to join you via video today. Integration of women is not only a social matter, of course. It is an economic imperative. This is the overarching motto of the GIZ program EconoWin, Economic Integration of Women, commissioned by the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, and supported by more than 34 companies from Egypt, Jordan, Morocco, Tunisia, and Germany. All partners are joining forces, fostering the common idea. When women work, economies win. Tomorrow things will not get easier. Our global future will be challenging. Climate change, social issues, conflicts, the corona crisis, and an accelerating digital transformation. Economy and labor markets will drastically change. Worldwide connected, a new generation will make up not only the labor force, but will make the decisions of tomorrow. So we get together today to listen to them. This EconoWin Couch Summit is a great virtual adventure of a GIZ. High-level companies representatives from Commerzbank and BMCI in Morocco, ThyssenKrupp Germany, and Fermac in Tunisia, Gebrüder Peters from Bavaria, and Mercedes Gas in Egypt. International and national companies engaging in professional gender diversity management. Directors of academia and science, all of them focusing more on the young female generation. We can sit on a couch, listen and be inspired. I'm proud that GIZ can contribute with the EcoWin Summit to a better and more promising future. This is just a start, and the dialogue across the Mediterranean Sea will continue. I would like to thank the German Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development, the Union of Mediterranean, and Siemens as cooperating partners for this summit. I hope you will all enjoy and participate this fantastic event.
Thank you, Torsten Schäfer-Gümbel. Okay, I love having a round of applause at these online events. So if you would like, always feel free to applaud. You can hear it and you can imagine the sound if we were all applauding together in the same room. So Torsten has just said he wants us all to be part of this. He wants us all to be active participants. So that means we need to know who else is in the room. And that's what I'd like to invite you to do now, is to join me on Slido.com. Slido.com is a system on the internet which will give you the opportunity. Could you turn your thank you very much. It sometimes happens, don't worry. So this will help you to have your voices heard. You can either scan the QR code that you can see on your screen, or you can go on Slido.com, and when you're asked, if you could enter the password EconoWin20. So without the hashtag EconoWin20. And I'm going to be asking you some questions now, so we have a good overview of who's in the room, who's sitting on the different couches in our huge region. So the first question, as soon as everyone comes on, as you're coming on, I'll show you what the first question is. It's just to get an overview of where people are. I had the opportunity of speaking to some of you as you were coming in, but now I think we can get some numbers. So this is the first question. Where do you mainly live and work from at the moment? So Europe, the MENA region, the rest of the world, or maybe we have some visitors from outer space. They can also feel welcome. So we have 56% currently from the MENA region, moving up. So oh, we've got some aliens joining us. Welcome. So the link you can see on your screen, perhaps if someone else could put the link in the chat, it's slido.com, and that will give you the opportunity to join us. So it looks like we have roughly 2/3 from the MENA region and 1/3 from Europe right now. And we need to use all of the different experiences that we have from the different regions. So we're moving up to 70% from the MENA region. Okay. So not everyone has joined right now. That's fine. We can use these questions also for you to get a hang of the technology. But this is already, I think, showing us the general. We've got a good mix, and mostly we have representatives and participants working from living in the MENA region. My next question. This is asking how you're currently employed, and please understand the word employed to mean how you use your time during the day. Are you employed? Are you a student? Are you self-employed, or something entirely different? So at the moment we have most of people in the room are employed. Just get some more answers to this. We've got some students. Something else, and if you want to write in the chat what something else is, that would also be interesting for us later. The chat will also be saved, so we can use that as well. All right, so we have 80% of you are employed in organizations. So let me just call you intrapreneurs, and we have 5% entrepreneurs and 30% students. Next question. Have you or are you currently ever been a leader in an organization? Let's just see if we have any managers or any previous managers. Oh, wow, it's neck and neck. So we have a lot of people who are currently or have been leaders. Half and half. More. Okay, this is great. All right, wonderful. Thank you so much. So we're talking about changing organizations from the leadership position, but obviously also from the position of not yet leader. Next question, just to make sure that we're all talking about the same concept. What's Gen Z? What's Gen Z for you in one word? There's no right or wrong here. You can enter as many times, as many concepts as you want, but just in one word, what's Gen Z? Oh, change coming up. Future, hope. Young, dynamic, creative, digital natives, millennials, energy, I love it, sci-fi, self-realization. Wow, look at this. It certainly inspires you to come up with all these terms. So if this is what Gen Z is all about, my next question for you is, do you belong to Gen Z? So, are you part of Gen Z? Yes, no, or are you not sure? Oh, no. No is in the lead. I'm not sure. This is really interesting. So nearly 60% of you are saying, no, I'm not part of Gen Z. So, hey, we have a lot to get out of the 18% who say, yes, we are. Yes, I am part of Gen Z. That's really interesting. We'd love to know what's brought you to this space together, whether you are belonging to Gen Z or not belonging to Gen Z or are not quite sure. So perhaps if you could share, please, for us, and this will guide us throughout the next week, what your hopes are for the EconoWin 2020 Couch Summit, Voices of the Future, When Women Work, Economies Win. What are your hopes? There's absolutely no right or wrong here. We just want to know what's driving you to join us in this space. Concrete results, inspiration, insights, taking things away for your own. I mean, this is where you have to think of yourself. More inclusion, interesting insights, contribution, connection, strategies on how to attract, prove that women are worthy and reliable. Yes. My career objectives: exchange, learn more about the MENA region. We've got lots and lots of representatives here. Women changing the world, HR practices. If you could keep your microphones muted, please, if you're not speaking. Success, yes, great minds. I think that this is all very much on the agenda. Let's prove that we Gen Z can do it. There are more to us. Yes, using the corona situation maybe also as an opportunity. And how to help women who are being more affected by the coronavirus. Yes, she can. This is exactly the sort of mood that I think we all need also in the current situation, in the current times. Okay, thank you so much. This is really, really useful. And we will also be using these hopes to obviously look back in a week's time and say, so how was it? Were your hopes also fulfilled? Did you get the inspiration, for example, that you wanted? Before we start, let's just have another little bit of fun quiz looking at some of the talents, some of the needs, some of the facts and figures that may also give us a little bit of inspiration. So on Slido, you can now join the quiz. As soon as you join and you're asked to do with your name appears, and you have the opportunity of maybe winning and belonging to the winning group of people. So do join the quiz. Everyone's joining. As many as possible. It's fun and quite interesting as well. Okay, are we ready to join the quiz? I'm going to start the quiz now. So the first question on the quiz, and if everyone who's not speaking could turn their microphone and their videos off right now. How many jobs could be created in entirely new occupations by 2030? This is according to a McKinsey study. So what do you think? 500,000 new jobs could be created in entirely new occupations by 2030? 160 million, 14 million? What do you think? Let's get some more people guessing. I'm going to allow another couple of people to choose. Which one do you think? All right. I'm going to give you another 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And let's see the results. So 47% of you say 14 million, and 20% 500,000, and 32% say 160 million. Well, the correct answer is, in fact, astoundingly, 160 million new jobs could be created in entirely new occupations. Now, this is where we need that sort of creativity, courage, and preparedness that we heard from our Gen Z in the film. Next question. Let's focus on Egypt. So how many girls want to work when they're adults in Egypt? What do you think? Is it 80%, 34%, or 16% of girls want to work when they're adults? I'll show you the results in just a little while. Let's take another 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and how have you voted? 80% say, 75% say 80% of young girls want to work, and the correct answer is, you guessed it, correct. 3/4 of you said it's 80%, and that is right. Last question. Again, let's look at these Egyptian girls in a little bit more detail. What do these girls give us their strongest motivation to want to work? Do they want to be able to travel the world? Do they want to be able to buy their own house? Or do they want to be independent? What do you think? Just let another couple of you answer the question. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Most of you say they want to be independent. Some say they want to be able to travel the world, and 2% say they want to buy their own house. Well, the correct answer is they want to be independent, presumably also to be able to travel the world and buy their own house. So we can see that there's a strong motivation to work, to be part of the valuable career offerings that are coming up to transform the world. So that's what we're up against, and the course of the next few days will help us understand how we can support them in doing that. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now, but please don't get out of Slido, because Slido is going to be the instrument that we will also be using right now in our as we accompany our speaker through the keynote. Our speaker is Crystal Kadakia. She's a 2-time TED speaker and an inspiring voice of millennials. Her Invati consultancy empowers leaders to navigate the human side of the digital transformation. She's an expert on debunking the millennial myth, which is also the millennial myth is also the title of her book, and she offers workplace breakthroughs for career paths of the future. As the wonderful Crystal Kadakia gives her keynote, What Do Career Paths Mean for Tomorrow? She'll be asking you some questions which we'll be using Slido for. And please also use the Q&A part of Slido to give us questions that we can then use in the discussion with Crystal. But now it's my great pleasure to hand over to Crystal from her wonderful studio. And Crystal, over to you. So happy. And let's give her a round of silent applause.
I'll applaud myself. How about that? You know, we're all women here. So, you know, when you think about Gen Z women, we want to be applauding ourselves and lifting each other up. So good morning, everybody. It's so great to see all the people joining, all the quiz questions. That was really insightful. And watching those videos really made me feel very connected to you all. I'm actually based over here in the US, and so I'm one of those aliens that joined in on the poll. And when we look at what is common across Gen Z globally, there's actually quite a bit. I identified so much with a lot of the things that people were saying in those videos that they see for their future. So let's talk about the career paths of tomorrow. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this talk, it's that the future of work isn't made yet. It is what you make it to be given the landscape. So this sounds like a pretty bold statement, but the thing is, for the last 8 years, I've been listening to a lot of future of work speakers, and they talk about it like it's something happening 50 years from now. And, you know, it's like something happening to us. It's something happening to us. But everything that I've seen in the last 10 years has also been us shaping what our own careers are, what our own realities are. And that's the way everything really works, right? There's forces coming at us in the future, and it's our reactions, our choices that make it what it is. So I'm going to be sharing a few trends and patterns to talk about that emerging landscape. But then I'm really going to focus on some mindset shifts, some ideas that you might want to apply in your own thinking as you develop your career or as you support women in the workplace and support Gen Z. So let's get into the emerging landscape that we navigate. This is whether you're conscious of it or unconscious. I see a lot of people trying to navigate a landscape that they're not even aware they're in. I don't want any of you to be in that situation. The more that you're aware of all these future forces, the more you're going to have choice in your corner. So let's talk about a few of those trends that are coming in this emerging landscape. The first is you. You know, you're the future of talent. When you think about Generation Z, you are the future of talent. So what about you? Where you are matters. It matters because it defines your talent pool. So one of the first things to look at is to understand that the size of Generation Z is not the same around the world. For example, in Egypt, 47% of the population is below the age of 25, compared to 24% in Germany. So this tells us a lot about who your competition is. It tells you a lot about the potential for economic growth and where that's all happening. So think about the size of Gen Z where you are, the number of women versus men graduating, the number of college degrees. These kinds of statistics give you an idea of what's going on in your country and what's going on around the world. Automation, you know, the trend that everyone loves to talk about because it gives you those images of robots doing everyone's jobs, and then you feel a lot of panic and it's really scary. Well, here's the thing, is with automation, we're talking about the routine being robotized, being automated. And what that allows, the possibility that allows for us in the future of work, is what I call a greater increase in the 4 C's. Complex tasks, cognitive tasks, connective tasks, that's between you and me, or creative tasks. There's not enough people skilled in these areas. And you know why? Because we came from the industrial age, which has lasted for 80 some odd years. And in the industrial age, it was all about repeatable efficiency. Those are all the things that are being automated. Can robots be creative? Yeah, you know, sure they can. Maybe 50 years from now, that's where we're headed. But even then, what we bring as humans is really important because it's what connects us to one another. So we've got a huge potential in this area of what we can do in the future. In fact, when you look at some of these statistics, you can actually understand how many people are being predicted to be replaced by automation. And again, it's different based on which country you're in. So I encourage you to take a look at some of these statistics. I'll just give you a few examples. In Egypt, the prediction is that about 3.7 million full-time employees could potentially be displaced by automation. In Germany, it's around 9.1 million. So it just really depends on where you are, what kinds of jobs are in the current economy, and then what the population is looking like. Another trend from a landscape perspective is what was mentioned in one of the earlier videos. Challenges are global. Okay, there might be a local crisis, but because in the digital age we're all so connected, there's global impact. And of course, we're all experiencing that right now with the pandemic. Of course, we have climate change issues. We have these global scale issues that are impacting what we do. And that's another reason why automation, yes, it's there, but there's a lot of work for us to be done. There's a high need in the future for greater cross-country collaboration and work. There's those global challenges that need global minds, a global brain trust to be solved. And then socio-political reactions. This is one that's really interesting because, you know, at the end of the day, people are unpredictable to an extent, right? And when you look around the globe, with all of these changes, there's also growing inequalities around the world. There's growing income gaps, and there's a lot we can do in that space. What happens when you think about these growing income gaps and growing inequalities is that there's 2 kinds of things we're balancing. There's a level of scarcity and scarcity mindset, and then there's a level of abundance. And I'll tell you what, both of those ends of the spectrum pose issues. The level of scarcity can often create a scarcity, coming at things from what we call a scarcity mindset, from doing things from a fear-based survival mode. You know, you're really trying to put food on the table. And that can create a lot of intense reactions. Well, similarly, the level of abundance, if you've got overabundance, it can also create issues. And we see that in the US. We see historically that compared to the past, the levels of depression are rising. The level of motivation goes down. And so we're really looking at figuring out how do you deal with these kinds of issues. So if you've got too much or too little, they both cause challenges. And we want to be somewhere in the middle, where you've got enough that you're not trying to fight for food on the table, but you don't have so much that you've given up on your ambitions altogether. There's a lot of research that goes behind these kinds of psychosocial dynamics, but it creates responses both individually and for our governing structures as well. So it's interesting to watch those socio-political reactions. And the last thing that I'll say as an emerging landscape trend is, of course, digital technology. I mean, this is so cool right now that we're able to be connected. Think about in the past, you know, if I was this age 40 years ago, would this even be possible? Probably not, right? So your possibility is no longer confined to what is locally common or known. And digital technology is really helping us become informed and giving us new tools and new ways to give our value, to provide our value out there. So that's a huge, huge possibility. So just to give you some data, and this is actually pre-coronavirus, okay? So I don't know how this has changed in the last few months, but pre-coronavirus, by 2028, 73% of all departments were predicted to have remote workers, with a third of full-time employees working remotely. And in 2019, this is a US figure, 57 million Americans freelanced, which is about a third of the workforce. So that's huge, right? Again, you never would have thought 30, 40 years ago that this would have been the reality. But it's changed, and it's changed really pretty rapidly because of digital technology. So those are some of the overarching trends to keep in mind. Now, what do you do about them? Whether you're trying to navigate your career or you're trying to guide the careers of others, how do these different trends, automation, global scale challenges, who Gen Z is, the socio-political evolution, and digital empowerment, how do these start to really integrate and combine and become something that you have choices to navigate within? Let's talk about some of those mindset shifts. To some people, when they think about all of these future forces, it's a scary picture. But I'll tell you what, I'm not afraid. That is because I have constantly asked myself, what is possible now that wasn't possible before? This single question can help you make totally different choices. A lot of people, we have a tendency for a fear of change. This is a natural human trait. And what happens is that we think about where we've been and we know where we've been. And so when we think about the future, it's stuck with all these unknowns. And we just think, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to do what I did before in the future. And we hold on to that business as usual or roads other people have walked mindset. And we think about how can I continue to just hold on to those things and carry those things with me into the future. Those are still very good questions to ask. There are great things and there's great roads that have been made in the past. But we also need to ask ourselves, what is possible that wasn't even possible in that past, that's so amazing that I want to make the most of that every day, that I want to make the most of that as I think about my future career. This single question has made a really big difference to me in my career. About 13 years ago, I started my first job, and I was working as an engineer, completely different field than I'm in now. And I was working for a pretty big corporate company. And I just found over the first 3 years of my career that the environment just wasn't working for me. Okay, you know, I would wake up, I would go to work, and from 8:30 to 5 o'clock, back to back, I would just have meetings. And I literally mean it was back to back meetings. And I found myself after work trying to strategize and think about why am I doing what I'm doing, and then trying to bring that back to work. Well, long story short, what happened is I started running into some serious serious health issues around fatigue. And luckily, 13 years ago, digital technology was starting to make its way into the workplace. And I realized there are things possible now that weren't possible before. So I wanted to take back control of my health. I realized that I want to create a lifestyle that allows me to be productive, allows me to give back to the community, allows me to be engaged, and doesn't have to hurt my health. You know, I just asked myself, why can't that be possible? And so I actually negotiated a location-free role. And this is something at the time, you know, I saw other people doing who had been with this organization a lot longer. You know, they had the credibility to do it. But I said, you know what? It's possible. Why not ask the question? Why not explain how this could work? Why not even explain what possibilities the company could gain because I'm going to be in this location-free role that I wasn't in before, because I'm not enclosed by the boundaries of the corporate headquarters. And you know what? They said yes. And that started a whole new chain of thinking for me and a whole new chain of thinking for them. I had always been a highly rated employee. From that point forward, I started leading global projects. I got my first direct report during that time. And every single time, I was the one who kept showing them what's possible when a young person who doesn't have that much experience can work remotely, can be location free. What kind of different situations and trust can we create because of this new way of working? So asking that question is really, really powerful. The second shift I'll share with you is to think about investing in your complexity. So the world, everyone, society, they like to define who you are by what they can see, and they like to put labels on people. And this is okay. We need to have some way to collectively assess what's going on. There's no way to manage people at scale if you can't have some kind of way, some kind of lens of comparing people. But you don't have to do that for yourself. The world's going to do that for you. Okay, so you can transcend that by investing in your complexity. What do I mean? There's common ways to think about identity. The common way to think about identity and who we are is, again, those things people can see. Age, culture, race, gender identity, where you grew up, what your educational background is, all of the things that are put on your resume. That's great. But let me tell you what makes a really big difference. A more powerful way to think about identity is what I call, well, this is a theory that's out there. It's called the iceberg model. And the idea is that, you know, in an iceberg, you just see a little piece of it at the surface. And below the surface, there's much more underneath. That's kind of how we all are as people. Is above the surface, there's all those things that, you know, people can label and they can see, and it's on your resume and it's fantastic stuff. But below the surface, there are all of the unique experiences that made you who you are. The more time you spend reflecting on those things below the surface, the more you'll bring them above that waterline. The more you'll bring them to a place where other people can also see them. And the better you become at articulating those unique perspectives, those unique things that make up your identity, the more data people have, that along with the general things we can compare each other with, there's also this fuller story. There's also this thing that this person stands for. And that can make a huge difference. My mom always used to tell me, you know, she still says this now. She says, you know, the moment you start talking, people forget that, you know, there's this small petite girl who's very young speaking on a stage. I'm not that young anymore, but when I started, I was 25. And she would say, you know, people just forget all those things. It just goes away because of the power of what you're saying. And I can tell you the first comment I often get when I come on stages is my clients will see me and they'll say, you're a lot shorter in person. Because they'll have watched the TEDx talk or they'll watch the other talk, and that's the kind of presence each of you can cultivate. Again, whether you're leading a company already or you're just starting your career, knowing what's below the surface is so helpful. So with that, this third shift comes with that articulation. People tend historically to pursue subjects or topics. They're thinking about what major am I going to study in college, what industry am I going to join, what field I'm going to join. Again, these are all good questions. But think about also identifying what I call your lifelong, your core DNA capabilities. These are things that, again, it comes from that below the surface, that iceberg, and it continues to grow and build over time. It's your perspective on the world. It's how you show up. So I think about this core DNA as made up of three things. The first is your natural strengths. These are the things that we usually look at, what it is you're good at. The second thing is this iceberg that I keep talking about. It's this unique perspective. Because you are who you are, exactly where you are, what do you know that no one else does that shapes that expression of your strengths? And I'll share with you mine in a moment to try to help you understand what I'm getting at here. The third piece is your passion. Now, I think of passion a little bit differently probably than most people. A lot of people, and especially young people, I've noticed they really want to find their passion. And it's like this one thing that's going to carry you for the next 100 years of your career. And I have to get it right now. That's not how I think about passion, okay? I think about passion as the need that you're seeing out there that would be the best use of your natural strengths, your unique perspective at this time. Your passion might change, but those natural strengths, those unique perspectives, the need you see, that's what's going to change over time. And you're going to keep bringing yourself to those needs throughout your career. So those are the three things that I think make up that core capability that you want to start articulating. So the more you reflect on these, the more you can articulate what you're standing for, who you uniquely are, that is an incredible force in that space. That's going to help you stand out. It's going to help you define your career and make those choices. Those choices not based just on the different labels the world has out there, but on what you really want. And when you go after what you really want, you are unstoppable because the fire is coming from within you, right? It's not just coming from a report card or a success metric that the world has put out there. So focusing on what's different about you, which is all this stuff under that iceberg, that's where your greatest possibilities live. So this is where we're going to stop for a Slido poll. I'll share with you my core unique capability, and then Natasha, I'd love it if we can then switch to the Slido. Think about what your unique perspective might be because you grew up where you grew up, you had the experiences you had, and of course you're going to have more than one perspective, but just be thinking about one. And I'll share with you mine. So one of the things about me that has constantly shaped my career is how I grew up. My parents were immigrants from India. They moved to the US and they settled in Texas. Now, I was born and raised in Texas, but can you imagine the extreme polar opposites that were living in my head while I was growing up? Think of it this way. My family in India, they're all vegetarians. Texans love beef. They love barbecue. So you can just imagine how many gaps in culture I've been bridging since a young age. Then of course I ended up as an engineer, so I was a female in a male-dominated field. It turns out that I'm not really an extrovert, I'm also an introvert. I tend to be an ambivert, I'm a left brain, right brain thinker. The unique perspective for me has been to constantly been this person who's holding polar opposites in my head and figuring out what's valuable about both of those and coming up with a middle road. And that's something time and time again. I now work in a space around organizations, and I'm constantly bringing people together, looking at problems and bringing those together. So maybe that might have given you some food for thought on something from your past, your identity that's made up who you are, that's just something you stand for. And you have a lot of practice in it. Because I'll tell you what, bridging gaps had a lot of practice in it. So Natasha, can we switch to the Slido and see what folks are thinking about?
Yes, we can. It's on. So if everyone wants to write down what's a core unique capability or perspective you bring to the workplace.
And for those of you who are leaders, in organizations, you probably see patterns of things that you've chosen to work on. There's a reason why you're in the position you're in. And again, that identity has shaped your choices, unconsciously or consciously.
At the moment, my screen is not sharing. It does not want to share. So I'm going to, I'm just going to tell you what people are saying. So I'm seeing being autonomous, adaptiveness. It's obviously proving quite a challenging exercise. I guess this is something that people should also take away with them and think about more also when they're thinking about, okay, so what can I do? How can I actually make other people also aware of what's special about me? Can we have some more? Just go for it. It's all anonymous. We're not going to follow up on this with you.
And if this is definitely what many people would call the work, right? The work of us all growing is figuring out where all of our choices are coming from.
Oh, there's lots more coming in now. Empathy, good mood, dedication, sense of responsibility, bridging differences, compassion, energy, thinking of the greater good, anything's possible, optimism, passion. There's always another way to do things, reliability, valuing complexity, the gray zone, bringing a different perspective on the table, not being afraid of losing, hope, learning, adapting. So these are all really strong capabilities.
That is amazing. See, those are all the people I want to hire on my team right now. Those are the people who I want shaping the future of work, right? There's always another way. I love that, right? The compassion, the empathy. And a lot of times this question, another way to think about it is, what are things you've had to become resilient to over time? What are things that you felt you had a challenge and you had to overcome it, and you have a lot of practice in overcoming that challenge? Because I'll tell you what, it's so interesting to see what we're all resilient to, because challenges have a way of coming back in our lives over and over, and you get that additional practice. So I love those, and keep working on thinking about how to articulate those and seeing how those show up in your choices. You're going to find that you're attracted to certain things. When I was an engineer, I often was attracted to bringing people together. And it really was interesting to me. It became very clear when I took an assessment, if you've heard of Myers-Briggs, I took an assessment similarly called Strengths Finders. And it gives you your top 5 strengths. And my 5 strengths were so different from all the other engineers. Theirs were like analytical, problem solving, so on. Mine were all like developer, harmony. I was all about the people. So it was showing up in the background even then. And I realized the more I invested in that capability, the more I could shine. Because this is where all my power comes from, right? It's all of my choices are inevitably being fueled by this thing that I'm really good at, because it's shaped so much of who I am. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that with the Slido. So now what? Like, say you've chosen your path, okay, and you've kind of figured out your initial move or your initial chain of moves. What about the workplace? How's the workplace changing? Well, I'm going to go through these relatively quickly because I know we all are experiencing it. One of the things about coronavirus that I love, which is hard to say because it's been such a really tough thing, but I always believe in possibilities, so there's all these silver linings to me. And one of the things I love is that it's accelerated remote work. Not because I think the future is 100% remote, but because we came from a world, again, think industrial age, where we couldn't be remote. And there's a lot of people who are clinging on to that world where work is super structured. You show up at a certain time and place. I need to see you to know that you're working. And remember what I told you about my story? I knew that I could be incredible. It just wasn't in the confines of that structure. It just didn't work for me. And there's been so many times when I look at the digital age and I think, we're not going to become a part of the matrix. We're not going to become 100% wired in. That's not what this is about. But there is going to need to be some blend. And because of coronavirus, we got to really experience, can people actually be productive from home? And there's been a lot of experimentation going on in that whole arena. So here are the things I've been observing both in my years of being location free and also with the past several months of people really trying this out. The first thing I'll say is that it's been so interesting to see the personal and professional becoming decompartmentalized. Right? I think Natasha mentioned the cat could be walking around in the background. I had to go put my cat in another room right before this started because he started meowing, right? So the personal and professional are intermingling. And here's the real possibilities of that. In the past, when you think about the workplace, people left their personal lives at home. And yes, we can say that and you could see it maybe from an external perspective as that's great. We can tell someone's really focused on working. But the reality is that we're all human. And even if you try to leave your personal life at home, it's kind of can be running around in the background. Again, the more we bring things to the surface, the more we're able to actually proactively work with it. So a lot of the things I've seen in coronavirus that's so cool are things like gender roles being rebalanced. And at a minimum, genders actually being able to understand what they each do and they bring to the table. I've also seen an integration of personal stress into professional productivity because everyone's lives at homes can be very different. You might have kids. You might be taking care of aging parents. There might be a lot of things going on for you that now people get a chance to see and you get to work through it together as a team. It's not just something happening in the background. And there's this increased bonding and compassion that's possible that then lifts us all up. So something I'll say that's really important about the gender roles is that every role we play in life has something valuable to share, and it can be stressful. So whether you're in a place where women are used to participating in the workplace or not, there's a lot to be learned from all the different roles we play. I know in the US, something that I've seen is a huge need for millennial men to have flexibility to be able to be at home. And that's because there were joys and benefits of the roles that we play at home that really they weren't in. We're not like Europe. We didn't have huge paternity leaves or things like that. And one of the things that's changing in the US is actually helping men feel more comfortable to invest in family life, which makes women more comfortable to invest in the workplace life. So those are some of the things that we can think about. There's a lot of things that people don't know that they don't know. There's joys of contributing to the workplace that, we might also find stressful. There's joys of contributing to family life that again can also feel stressful. But it's great when you can experience both worlds and bring yourself to both worlds. and have that be an integrated journey. So there's some really interesting things that we're seeing with coronavirus around empathy and compassion for one another. The second thing I'll mention as a silver lining, and that I see in the future of work, is the idea of balancing isolation with overconnection. So something that's so cool about digital technology is you can connect with anyone all around the globe. But it's got to be intentional, because guess what? You can connect with anyone around the globe. It can be extremely overwhelming to have so many connections, so much information coming at you all the time. So what I see in the future of work is if we're intentionally shaping it, we're able to actually use those connections in a much more powerful way. Rather than, again, being reactive and just trying to keep up, we're choosing, well, these are the people I really want to be connected to right now. And so really the globe is your relationship oyster. To give you an example of the power of this, I had a person who reached out to me on LinkedIn about 7 years ago. She was doing a research project. She lived in France at the time. And I didn't know who she was. I had no idea, but I said, yeah, sure, I'm happy to help you. She was doing a research project on millennials. Well, a couple of years later, I was going through my master's degree and I was needing to do a research project on France. So I go, okay, this is perfect. We can return the favor. And I ended up going to France at a later time and actually meeting with her in person. She's one of my really good friends today, and she's left France. She's in another country. And guess what? In this country, she actually doesn't feel safe every day. There's actually a huge gender gap where she's living, and it's really starting to hit her. And there's no one in her local environment she feels safe to talk to about this. So she called me, and this was literally 2 weeks ago that she called me and we talked. And I just think about the power of that. You know, she might have been stuck in her local community and trapped in that and just have to deal with it. But no, she has a globe of connections available to her that she can reach out to and figure out maybe something she doesn't know that she can do. And so those are the kinds of things I see in the future, both, again, personally and also professionally. There's connections we can make that can help us see what we don't know, because in a globe, there's so many amazing things that are going on. And the last thing I'll say here is that we're changing the manager and employee relationship. And we're seeing that the relationship's much more based on trust. I want to leave some time for Q&A, so I'm going to start going a little quicker because I can tell that we're running out of time. I want to give you a chance to respond to the second poll and then give you just one or two last closing thoughts and then open for Q&A. So I'd love to hear from you. What's a silver lining you've noticed during coronavirus that just wasn't something we used to do? It wasn't something we did before.
Okay, so the poll is on, and I'm going to try and share my screen. It's not working terribly well, but we'll see. Otherwise, I'll just read it out to you again. So please, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to share with us. No, it's not gonna allow me. So I'm just gonna read out what I can see here. Sure. It's quite unfair. I get to see everything. So feedback from mentors, value of unpaid work done by women, time for family, flexible working, bonding time, communities coming together, remote work, no flights, helping the community selflessly, global consciousness, flexible working, working is possible from everywhere. So there's a lot. Peace for the planet, working is possible, compassion with others. Oh, there's a lot. People are, I don't think that they're finding it at all difficult to find these silver linings, you know?
That's great. And, you know, this is one of the most challenging times for the globe, right? So think about this. When when we're in one of our most challenging times as a globe and we can see these possibilities, these positives, just imagine when we're back to, well, let's just say when we go back to the new normal. Okay, that's the buzzword these days, the new normal. When you go back to the new normal, what possibilities are there that, again, we could be making the most of? So before we open up for Q&A, I just want to leave you with a few last thoughts. One is that culture is made and remade in conversation. So this is very important to keep in mind because we might feel like where we've been is just the situation we just have, and that's all we've got. Nope, because culture is constantly being remade in conversation. And if you want to change the culture in your community, start talking about something different. And you don't have to totally rock the boat to start having a different conversation. It could be a dialogue, it could be a question that you ask that you didn't used to ask, right? Like the question around what's possible in our current situation. If you're a leader, of course, you've got a whole culture you can create around you that wasn't there. So think about what you're saying, because at the end of the day, the future of work we create, it depends on the lens we hold. If we think the future is going to be this really scary, anxious place where jobs are being ripped away from people's fingertips and we're just all starving, you're going to create that kind of future. And if you have this hope, this optimism that I really saw, I really felt with that word cloud earlier, that's what you're going to create. If you see those 4 C's, for example, that complex, creative, connected piece, and you see, well, I've got a role in this future. There are amazing possibilities we can take advantage of that we can elevate humanity together with. That's the future that you'll start creating. So I'm going to open for Q&A and just leave you with this idea of the future of work. It isn't made yet. It's what you, all of us are making.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to give you, again, another silent round of applause from everybody here in all of the countries and all of the regions that are watching and being inspired by you, as many people have also said in the chat. Thank you so much. And yes, there are lots of questions that are coming in. I'm going to read them out. And again, ladies and gentlemen, feel free to keep those questions coming in and also like some of the questions that are already there. So right at the top is Maha's question on how to narrow the gap between job expectations and real work life. So please keep your answers short and then we can go through as many questions as possible.
Job expectations, real work life. Always keep in mind that there is going to be something you don't love about any role you play. So the more we communicate that to ourselves, and again, if you're a leader and you want to communicate this to new hires, there's no role you'll ever take on in life that doesn't have something you don't want to do. It's like washing the dishes at home. You don't want to do it, but it's got to be done, right? And there's always going to be opportunity. Keep focusing on that opportunity because that's where you're going to shine.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm going to also go down the list a little bit. Maria asks, would the question, what is your unique perspective, be a good question for a job interview? Is it something you'd encourage companies to ask?
Only if you're going to do something with it. So here's the danger. I love asking that question. And here's what happens when Gen Z and millennials show up to the workplace. They're like, okay, now you have to put in all the, what in the US we call it the grunt work. Well, why did you want to know my unique perspective then, right? So only if you've got the career pathing or management skills there to help empower your people and not just make them feel like, oh, well, I'm just doing the routine work. They're not really leveraging my actual talents. If you are going to be leveraging their perspective, yeah, I would ask that question because I think it really helps people give them a fuller story.
Right, thank you. An interesting question that Mohammed posed is, what are the most essential skills do you think for the post-pandemic future?
One of the most essential skills I think is remote relationship building. So one of the things that I've noticed with remote teams is that people are used to just running into one another, right? And whoever they run into, that's their relationships. Well, it takes a different skill set and a different level of choices to intentionally be able to connect with people. And I think that's something that's going to continue to be incredibly important in the future, especially if you don't want to be limited by thinking it just in whatever local community you're in. We all feel limited by whatever local community. Being able to build those relationships, that's going to keep on propelling you in the future.
Fascinating. And talking of relationships, the question's just come in: how to connect Gen Z with other generations? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good question, because wanting to connect Gen Z to other generations, well, they've got to want to connect, right? Everyone has to be motivated to connect with one another. But I think it's really great to invest in mentorship programs. And a lot of that, I think, can be considered very two-way. I know that every single mentor I've had, they've also gotten a lot out of the relationship. And I think that's something that we need to continue to invest in. There's such a gap in experience between Gen Z and the boomer generation in terms of what, just coming from a world that didn't have digital technology growing up to now, there's so many little things you wouldn't think about somebody knows from older generations, like just even knowing what to do with nothing, right? Like nothing, like being bored, which a lot of people are, again, struggling a lot with during coronavirus. So there's just things like that that seem very small, but it guides your effectiveness and your productivity, right? And your engagement.
Thank you. Now, I also can say a lot for mentorship programs going in both directions. Fantastic. Another question: what to do when forced, this is really interesting, when forced to choose between nice colleagues and intellectually demanding work?
Wow, why would you need to choose between nice colleagues and intellectually demanding work?
Does it mean that intellectuals are not nice?
That's I'm trying to figure out is there a both and in that? And okay, whoever posed this question, is there another way you can help me understand that? Because I am really curious.
Perhaps whoever posed the question, it's anonymous, unfortunately, write it in the chat and we'll move to another one in the meantime. What do you think of distributed companies? I'm presuming that means decentralized. Do you think all companies will become distributed in the near future?
I don't think so. I think that there's a couple things with that. So I think there's going to be a mix. On one hand, I think there's going to be companies who notice that, wow, if I can get talent from anywhere, then I can find the best talent from anywhere. And they will want that, and that will drive that very dispersed type of company. And especially in companies where you don't have a lot of huge collaborative teamwork needs, that is probably going to be easier. But then there's still going to be a lot of physical locations, right? Physical work. So, a lot of my clients, for example, right now, they're in the utilities industry. Well, in a utility, you have a physical location where field employees are working. I also don't think everyone loves working on a computer all day long. I think there's a lot of people who want to be active, work on their hands, and I think even as those jobs are disappearing, more complex technical jobs are showing up. So I think it's going to be a bit of a balance.
Okay, thank you. There's a question here which is also interesting for policymakers and business leaders. They're saying, what should be their priorities towards Gen Z? This is really on a sort of policy and decision-making level.
I hope this gets at it, but I think diversity and inclusion initiatives are one of the just top priorities. And I mean from a gender perspective, but really from a full diversity spectrum. Because one of the things that we've been used to in the past is really thinking about one way of doing things. And I say this with all respect intended, right? I grew up here as a second generation Indian American, right? And you all know what's going on. I mean, probably have heard that there's a lot of tensions in the last week and a half in the US right now, right? And there's so much there where it's like there's been one way of doing things and there hasn't been enough around allowing more than one way of doing, being, thinking to show up in the workplace. And digital technology is exploding that paradigm, because online there are so many unique voices that are finding a platform. And that is going to be the base expectation when people walk into the workplace. And it already is. And so the more you invest in that diversity and inclusion, the more you're going to see both, not just the engagement of Gen Z, but I truly believe that inclusion leads to innovation. I think without people having different points of view, you can't create new things. So I think that's a very key thing to invest in.
Yeah, thank you so much. And perhaps two final questions. There are so many more, and I'm sure that's also important feedback for you, Crystal, to have access to these questions.
Yeah, that would be great.
Is first of all, how can I find the best job, whatever the field I'm in? So that's the first. And the second I'd like to ask is, someone says, do you believe that Gen Z will appreciate mentorship as we have done in the past, or will they see themselves able to figure things out themselves?
I'll answer that last one first. Didn't everyone when they were young think they could figure it out themselves and then realize that they needed help along the way? I think that one of the things I really see with Gen Z is a deep yearning for guidance, because think of it this way. We live in a time where we're getting so much information that it's overwhelming. They're almost yearning for a way to narrow down the field. And mentorship can really help with that. And sure, at first, like anyone who's young, yeah, I can do everything on my own. And you know what? I would encourage Gen Z, how do you find the best job possible? Talk to people. Talk to people, think about what you're good at. Don't just think that by sitting behind your laptop, you're gonna get the best job that's out there. And even if you're virtually connecting with people, put time into those connections, and use email. I just have to say that, because email is the way that communication happens in longer form in workplaces, and that if there's only one thing I've seen that's actually held Gen Z back, it's that we can't get a hold of people. And you can't just do it over text, because you don't want to get that letter with the periods and the punctuation. That's email. So that's my plug for communication. Use a variety of communication tools.
And also the slower ones, the asynchronized ones. That's really interesting. Thank you so much. Crystal, this has been so inspiring. People are writing in the chat, they're thanking you, they're responding to what you've said, I think, with a lot of learning. On the one hand, you've made it very clear to us that we need to invest in our complexity, and I'm saying us, even though I'm not a sort of Gen Z, but I think it's applicable for everyone. Knowing what we have to offer, what our core capabilities are, you've helped us to understand how that works. And also just being aware that we need to intentionally shape the future of work with our strengths, with our uniqueness, and with our passions. And you've also made a very clear call to companies to really profit from Gen Z and from diversity and inclusion, because that's the way to innovation. You said we need to change the relationships based on trust, and also not be shy to offer guidance, because this is what you're saying Gen Z is also calling out for. It's a very unclear and unstable world out there. And what I really like, and I think that's why it's been such a great start to our conversation, is that you say culture is made in conversation. So this has been great, and I'm sure that you've started to change the whole culture of the conversation here in our EconoWin Summit 2020. So thank you from all of us. Another big round of applause, please, for Crystal.
Thank you, and thanks, Natasha. And just for anyone listening, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. If you need some insight on possibilities in your workplace, you are so welcome to reach out across the pond. And I'm happy to talk with anyone who's here at this summit about the possibilities you have in your career. So
wonderful.
Thank you so much.
She likes email.
And LinkedIn. LinkedIn is great.
All right. Great. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we're coming to a close of our first episode. I can hardly believe it. This has been absolutely great. It's been a firework of inspiration, and there's more to come. Let's just give you a very brief overview of what's next. So this afternoon, starting at 2 o'clock, is the first spin-off, which is where your career dream may be able to come true. We're going to be talking to a real CEO. And let me also take the opportunity to introduce you to Maria. There she is. Maria, can you come online and let's see your beautiful face? Hi, this is Maria Losada, and she's also going to be facilitating the spin-offs. And she's on mute, but I'd love to hear your voice, Maria. Just say hi.
Hello everybody and welcome to the EconoWin Couch Summit, and see you this afternoon.
See you. Thanks very much. And I've given you a brief sum up of some of the things that I've taken away from this, but perhaps I could ask you to go back to Slido and give us an overview of your takeaways from episode 1 of the EconoWin 2020 Couch Summit. Be as specific as you can on a content level. What have you learned? What have you missed? What is it that you are taking away? And you're allowed to be quite egotistical at this moment. And my screen's not sharing, but I'll be able to share some of the results as they come in. So go back to Slido, please, and do leave us with some of your takeaways. I can see lots of applause. Let's have some takeaways. Also things that you think we missed out on, anything you think we could improve on, any feedback that you have from this first really exciting episode 1. Rethinking my career, investing in complexity, now reshaping the future. You'll always find things you don't like to do. Focus on the opportunity. Technology works. Gen Z's on track. Find my passion again. Motivation, modern trends, using complexity. The 4 C's and the new normal. Passion is a key word for success. Hey, there are fantastic takeaways here. I'm going to leave the Slido on, and you can please share more of your takeaways as we move forward. This was the start. This was episode 1 of the EconoWin 2020 Couch Summit, Voices for the Future, When Women Work. I think we've become very, very aware economies win. It's been great hosting you for this first session, and I look forward to seeing you at all the other spaces that we have. Thank you so much, and have a great lunch. Bye.